Welcome. Welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to get my levels right because I feel like this mic is louder than I want it to be, so I'm adjusting my voice down so that I'm not yelling at you all because I like you so much. I don't want to yell at you. I don't want you to think I'm mad at you because I'm so glad that you all have come. So greetings. Thank you for being here, and it's nice to see so many faces. I see Professor Charles Nesson. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. And Fern Nesson, welcome. It's really nice to see people that I know from my classes, people that I know from the Hip Hop Archive, people that I know from the Du Bois Institute. Thanks for coming along. My name is Vincent Brown, and I teach history here and African American Studies at Harvard, and I direct the History Design Studio at the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research, which, together with the Hip Hop Archive and Research Institute, is hosting this two-day symposium on Jamaican sound system for body and mind. Now, I was saying yesterday this symposium originated in an idea that I had when I met two of our speakers in Jamaica about this time last year. And I'll be really honest with you, I just thought they were cool. And I wanted to concoct an excuse to get them up here so I could hang out with them some more for a few days. But it wasn't hard to find that excuse. That's the best part of it. Because I knew right away that these were the perfect people to anchor 2 days of events celebrating, interrogating, and learning about the creative spirit and influence of Jamaican sound system, which emerged in Kingston in the early 1940s with customized audio arrays playing popular music in yards and streets for ever more enthusiastic crowds. Many of you know that the quintessential hip-hop sound first appeared in New York on the night of August 11th, 1973, when a 17-year-old Jamaican immigrant named Clive Campbell, known as DJ Kool Herc, threw a party at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx. Herc was a recent immigrant from Kingston, where he had been raised on a reggae sound and music culture that would provide the blueprint for hip-hop as we know it. In supplying music for the party, Campbell picked up on his roots. In the early 1960s, when Jamaican DJs had only a single turntable, they would often have a slick-talking rhymer called a chanter, provide a kind of rap between songs to keep people from wandering away from the dance floor. Soon the chanters were chanting over the records instead of in between them. Arguably the first rap record was Skang West, released in 1963 by Jamaican DJ Sir Lord Comic and the Cowboys. Sir Lord Comic had been a dancer for the Jamaican Admiral Dean sound system before taking up DJing in the 1950s. He would go on to record several iconic records and work with legendary reggae artist Lee Scratch Perry on his iconic Eastwood Rides Again album. So we're blessed this afternoon to have an opportunity to consider the relationship of sound system to hip-hop, of course, but also to reggae, to dancehall, and to black consciousness and culture in the broadest sense. Yesterday, we screened the film Out There Without Fear, Jamaica's Dancehall by our guest Joelle Powe, and hosted a movement workshop led by the renowned Jamaican dancehall choreographer and teacher Latonya Style at the Harvard Dance Center. Today, we want to reason with you about the intersection of music, movement, and thought, about the role of sound system in the political struggles around capitalism, colonialism, gender performance, and spiritual life. I'm expecting a lively engagement, followed immediately by a listening party for Space Age Rasta's new concept album, and we will have food and drink later, of course, so please stay with us. Now, as always, it takes a whole lot of talented people working together to make an event like this happen, and they deserve our sincere gratitude. I'm deeply grateful to my collaborator, Dr. Robin McDowell, one of the most creative and competent colleagues I've ever worked with, honestly. Elizabeth Epson, director of the Office for the Arts Dance Program, is very quickly becoming one of my favorite people on campus to plot and scheme with. And her end of this caper has been supported every step of the way by Tamika Gotch and Jesselyn Smith. At the Hutchins Center and Hip Hop Archive, I want to thank Henry Louis Gates Jr. and Marcelena Morgan for their sponsorship, in addition to the Hutchins Center's Executive Director, Abby Wolf, and Associate Director, Sean Lee, as well as Krishna Lewis, who's here, Kingsley Carter, Velma DuPont, and Sandra Mancebo. And I should pause and give a special thanks for this event to Sandra Mancebo because less than a week before this event, Sandra emailed me to say, hey, I just want to double check and make sure everybody's got their airline tickets. I said, oh yeah, it was always good to double check, always good to double check. And it turned out not everyone had their airline tickets less than a week before the event. And if it hadn't been for Sandra being there to catch me when I fell, this event would have never happened. So we all need someone like that, right? Who's not going to let you fall down. This time, this event, Sandra Manseba was my person for that. So very much, very, very, very special thanks to her. And finally, Suma Baidia at the Department of History. Now, of course, I reserve the greatest share of my thanks and praises for our featured guests, who've come all the way from Jamaica, filmmaker Joelle Simone Powe, dancer and choreographer Latonya Style, and music producer Makonnen Blake Hanna, also known as Space Age Rasta. Each of them will guide us through a vital engagement with the culture of Jamaican sound system as seen, heard, embodied, and understood. We're also grateful to have with us, too, Makonnen's mother, Barbara Blake Hanna. Are you there? Where? You're in the back now? This is in the back now. Thank you. She is actually the one who invited me to Jamaica last year, and that's how this all got rolling. An author, publicist, filmmaker, and sometime political operative, Barbara Blake Hanna was, in the 1960s, the first black reporter on British television. Oh. Decades later, she is still radiant, vigorously energetic, and with an impressive drive and strong sense of purpose. Now, during her brief but remarkably successful career in London, her prominence on British television sparked a racist backlash. Imagine that. Despite mixing with top people in the best of British society, she was unwilling to tolerate the everyday compromises that racism demanded. So after a decade, she decided to return home to the island. In 1972, the famed music producer Chris Blackwell hired her to promote the film The Harder They Come, starring reggae superstar Jimmy Cliff. And she soon joined the Rastafarian community, which included the one Bob Marley, who became her friend. The Rastafarians were stridently anti-racist, but their denunciations of the history of colonialism and white rule emanated from within a message of universal love. So for Barbara Blake Hanna and others, including myself, loving black people's culture and history was the only route to loving all people. So we're so blessed by the loving example of her work and by her presence with us here today. So a round of applause. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So now let me introduce our panelists formally and get to our reasoning. Joelle Simone Powe in the middle there is an accomplished documentary film director, writer, and researcher from Jamaica. Her work explores controversial personalities and topics in Caribbean history and culture. Her debut documentary, Out There Without Fear, explores Jamaica's dance hall and the role of class, race, and gender in the dance hall scene. And this is a fantastic film. If you haven't had a chance to see it, we'll post a link on the symposium webpage alongside recordings of today's discussion. Powe's subsequent work, Beverly Manley Uncensored, a 4-part docuseries on the former First Lady of Jamaica, created a national storm with its exploration of a very vexing time in Jamaican history. Powe's documentaries have been screened in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and the Americas, with significant presentations at notable academic and cultural institutions. Joelle is the producer also of Batsia, a mini-documentary series that explores provocative opinions on Caribbean society. Recognized as a 30 under 30 changemaker by the Institute of Caribbean Studies in 2021, Powe holds a BA in anthropology from Bard College. Her work strives to illuminate the complexities of Caribbean culture for international audiences through a multimedia approach. Latonya Style, to my left, is a world-renowned dancehall choreographer, performer, and instructor. She's been a prominent fixture on the dancehall scene since 1999, when she started choreographing and touring with top dancehall artists. Her illustrious career includes visits to more than 40 countries, teaching dancehall workshops and judging international dancehall battles. Latonya is the founder and CEO of Dance Jamaica Academy, an umbrella agency that pushes dancehall dancers to international festivals and brings foreigners to Jamaica to learn from local experts. She has certified more than 30 women worldwide to teach her licensed dance style, Stylish Moves. And she is a mentor to many upcoming dancehall dancers. Latonya Style created Dance Ja Awards, an awards ceremony dedicated to the recognizing of excellence in the dancehall scene. Style has also been featured in many films related to dancehall, including Out There Without Fear. She was a key consultant in Nick Cannon's King of the Dancehall movie and a lead subject in Joelle Powe's documentary. She published her book, The Stylish Moves Guide, an activity book, in 2021. And of course, she is also an artiste herself. Her single, Female Dancehall, was a hit in 2020. Makonnen Blake Hanna, on the end, is a Jamaican music producer and technology expert. Best known in Jamaica as the 13-year-old technology genius who was appointed youth technology consultant to the government in 1998. In his role as technology consultant, Makonnen traveled across the diaspora to encourage technology use and establish information technology programs at schools with an emphasis on programming, web design, and digital media disciplines. Makonnen has also worked on social impact music projects with the Berkman Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University, founded by Professor Charles Nesson, as well as touring Guyana schools, teaching technology in a program sponsored by former President Jimmy Carter's The Carter Center. In 2016, Makonnen produced and recorded Rockers Revolution, his mixtape album working with production team Natural High Music that established his name as a solo artist. Makonnen continues to record his own songs while adding to his long list of solo releases, co-productions, as well as singles and collaborations with leading young artists and established reggae stars. Makonnen is, moreover, the founder of the 144 initiative, established to create change in high-risk and inner-city communities using social impact programs that provide access to skills training, infrastructure, and community development activities. The 144 initiative is built on the foundations of the Rastafari Creed, that the hungry be fed, the naked clothed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, and the infants cared for. In recognition of his work upholding the principles and philosophy of the Jamaican Ethiopian Orthodox community since birth, in March 2023, he was inducted into the Ethiopian Royal Guard by His Imperial Majesty Prince Ermias Saleh Selassie, grandson of Emperor Haile Selassie and chairman of the Ethiopian Crown Council. Please give them all a warm welcome. So I have a series of questions for the next hour plus or so that I'd like to ask, but at the same time, I tend to like a fairly loose and open discussion. So if you all kind of want to break in with some questions, if the discussion is touching something that you really care about and you have an immediate comment on, please just raise two fingers as in, I got to get on this right now, right? Otherwise, we'll wait for an open Q&A until after we finish our little reasoning up here. But if you really got to break in, please break in. I don't want to stop anybody from participating in this. But I want to start us off just by trying to draw out a sense of what this relationship is between sound system, hip-hop, dance hall, reggae, and as I said, black culture and black consciousness more generally. Maybe we can start simply with Makonnen, the music producer. What to you is sound system, and how would you explain sound system culture to people who may be hip-hop fans, because they're at the Hip Hop Archive,
yes,
but may not know that much about its origins in Jamaican sound system?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's my honor and pleasure to be here. I greet you in the name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie Jah Rastafari. First of all, you shared something really important earlier about the origins of hip-hop and how Kool Herc was the pioneer. Him coming from Jamaica in that time, seeing that was like almost the time of birth of the sound system culture, where these music lovers, people who enjoyed listening to music, wanted to share it with the world, with the people around them in their communities. This was a time where, there was a lot of political turmoil as well. Jamaica was growing, and this was part of our musical expression of creating our own thing. Because a lot of our music at the time that was being played was coming from North America, Europe, and places like that. So when they actually started creating their own music, it wasn't really being showcased on the radio or anything like that at the time. It was only top 40 hits of whatever was going on in this side of the world. So it was an outlet that they used to expose themselves to their people, and it birthed a whole new culture which we have right now. So in that time, it was really very like low tech in a way. It was just some turntables and maybe like one turntable at a time, and there would be what we call a selector, which was the person who was selecting it's the curator of your playlist, really. And they would, you know, feel out the vibe of the room, the vibe of where they were, and select songs to bring that vibe up, to push it forward. And that was really the culmination. It also has a technological side as well, because these men, like, let's say, you might not know them personally, but people like King Tubby's or King Jammy's, scientists, these men were creating their own amplifiers and, like you said, our custom sound arrays of speakers, which are like 10, 20 feet high. And they started out really small. And they were just sharing the music within their communities. They used to actually go and connect the power to the light post. And it would be a very dangerous thing at the time for them to actually jack in to the power lines to get power to have their block parties. And this just continued to grow through, you know, our culture to where we have it now, where it's spread all across the world, and it's influenced so many other, not only genres, but how you guys actually partake and listen to music. And the effect is still there now. So to, you know, further add on and answer your question, it's part of our creative expression. It's a part of our coming out of colonialism and, you know, really accepting who we are, loving our culture, and just branching out, becoming ourselves. You know, we became independent in 1962, tumultuous time for Jamaica, and the music was something that helped to make people happy when they were going through such a crazy time. You know, music is such a beautiful thing, and it has such an impact on everyone's lives. So this was really the birth of the culture that we see today, which has brought dancehall. So it started the dance halls. There were places where people could go and listen to music and enjoy and be around others.
That's fantastic. There's something I want to pick up on in what you said, which is you talked about the selectors keeping the vibe up in the crowd.
Yes.
That relationship between the energy of the crowd and the music that people were actually playing
Yes.
was crucial to the evolution of sound system, and then, as we know, the evolution of hip hop. What I want to ask Latonya is, what is the role of movement in keeping the vibe up, right? So if you have the kind of the crowd and the selector thinking about how we organize the sounds, what we play in order to keep that vibe up, how about how we move? What's the relationship between the dancer, the larger crowd, and the selector in that scene?
Okay, so movement provides the visuals. So you're there at the party, you know, you're listening to music, but what's attracting your eyes? What are you seeing? Seeing everybody standing up drinking, that's a little boring. But seeing people move and different shapes of movements and different energies, different levels, somebody on the ground, somebody, you know, hands in the air, it's so beautiful to see. So I think it's pleasing to the eyes. So that's a connection. And I think the energy that the movement gives, it boosts the selector. So he's working off our energy and we're working off his energy. So we feed each other energy. And, you know, he uses our movement to decide if people are enjoying the party, or our movement kind of initiates what's to come. And it's just like it's a narration of the party then. Like, you know, he's talking to us, he's telling us what to do. And I think we play a very important part of the vibe of the party. I think the dancers definitely. Just imagine a party with nobody dancing. The selector himself is going to go to sleep. So, so we need the movement. And it doesn't have to be like serious dancers. It could be just the man rocking. You know, back in the days, we rent a tile and you're just moving. You're not really moving all over the place. But it's definitely a spiritual connection, you know, seeing the movement. And yeah, I think that answers the question.
So, I mean, what you're describing is what music theorists often call antiphony, call and response.
Yes.
But not just call and response in communication or call and response in music, but call and response between the kind of visual signal that the dancer provides, right? The energy that the dancer offers, and then the music answers that, and then the dancer answers that, and then the crowd, right, kind of generates its own energy off of that communication, which is fantastic.
Definitely.
And then I guess the question for you, Joelle, is as a filmmaker, right, an anthropologist, how do you think about what that means in your study of human beings and how they act, right? So you're coming along with maybe an academic perspective, somewhat, coming along with a camera to document this scene where this energy is building between the musician, the selectors, the dancers, the larger crowd. How do you frame that when you come to document it? What are you seeing? What are you choosing to look at? What do you think is important when you survey that scene with a camera and with your anthropologist insight?
Thank you. I think that Latonya raised an excellent point about this relationship between the DJ and the dancers, but another point I want to stress on about the sound system experience that I've observed as an anthropologist and documentarian is that each sound system in Jamaica is a unique creation. It's made by individuals and they source different materials, and the materials that they source, the quality of the wood, how hard they hit the nail, all of this creates the sound. And so every sound system in Jamaica has a unique sound, and this individual art is what makes the Jamaican sound system what it is. Because a sound system is really just any public audio system, and that exists outside of Jamaica. But what makes the Jamaican sound system is this idea that people actually are making customized pieces as opposed to mass-produced stereos. And so I think this experience, coupled with DJs who are there selecting music, or music librarians, coupled with the dancers, coupled with the pan chicken man outside, what we call the grabber man who sells marijuana, the patrons, all of this is what creates the dance hall experience, and which is also sound system culture. And so the main point I want to make is that sound system culture is an entire experience with different people who make it what it is, from the person who makes the sound system, to the DJ, to the dancers, to the patrons, and the people who are selling their small items there.
You know, for any of you, there's something really important in what you said when you talked about customization of the scene, of the sound system, of dance moves, of the music. What happens to that customized approach, to that kind of bespoke approach to music when it becomes mass culture? I mean, each of you have had the opportunity to engage, right, in music production, in dance on a worldwide scene, in thinking about how dancehall culture and how reggae has become mass culture. So what happens to that, the individuality, the bespoke nature of the creations that you all think is so important to the development of the forms?
Well, the sound system has been called by Dr. Sonia Stanley Naya, a scholar in Jamaica, a musical instrument, or national musical instrument. And that is a loaded comment, because an instrument is something that an individual plays to create an emotion in the listener. And they play soft and loud, piano, forte, and there are different moods that can be created. But with the sound system traveling abroad, this sometimes get lost, and Jamaican DJs have articulated it. You know, they say when they hear the sound systems abroad, for example, you know, it's traveled to England and Dominican Republic and Colombia, they say, well, they're making noise, but we want to make the music sound sweet. And this is very, very different. And I think sweet refers to the texture and the quality and the pleasing aspect of the sound. And so sometimes this has gotten lost in how Jamaican music or the sound system has been replicated in other cultures.
Okay, hold on. We got to run that back. We got to run that back a little bit. Because I want to ask Makonnen, your mother was there at the birth of reggae music and was friends with Bob Marley and a lot of those great artists who brought Rastafari to the world, but also reggae music to the world. And then you came along at a moment when dancehall was already ascendant. Would you describe that relationship between reggae and dancehall for us? And then maybe we can come back into that conversation about sweet music versus loud music.
Well, at the time when I was born, I was born in the 80s, so I'm not going to give it all away. But at that time was a transition period because Bob Marley died in 1981. And, you know, there was a whole culmination up until that time of reggae music. And the thing is, I want to also touch on this. It's important to also realize that the first dancehall DJs, the toasters, the talkers, the men who would do the songs, they started from a place of righteousness. Because the thing is, we have to define two things, is that the dancehall of now is a bit different from dancehall when it started out. And those artists who started first were people like Brigadier Jerry, Super Cat, U-Roy, who is credited as the originator and the founder of this whole toasting and DJing. He's like the first real DJ. They're all Rasta men. You know, even Super Cat, he's a Jamaican Indian, and he has long hair, but he considers himself a straight up Rasta man. So in the dancehall culture, it was evolving from this live music culture, which was reggae, into now this, as you would say, a party culture in a different way. So it's going from live music to more impromptu, anytime, anywhere, spinning records, instrumentals, and stuff like that. So it's also making things a bit more accessible for those who might not have had access to instruments and things like that. So that's a part of it. Secondarily, like you said, in the transition period of this time, it was, you know, there was like a void. Bob died. There was like a void. Like I said, he died before I was born. But there was a transitionary period where people were like, what's next? What's gonna come from Jamaica? And the late 80s to the 90s was when dancehall took hold, as we would say culturally. And certain artists started even, you know, breaking into mainstream abroad in America. People were getting record deals with like Sony and MCA and stuff like that. So it really was a continuation of the Jamaican music culture for modern times. Just like with everything else, like when they had rock and roll, people were like, that's trash, it's not cool, it's young people stuff. Dancehall got the same stigma. It still does have that stigma right now, even as it's spawning new genres. Because dancehall is a subgenre of reggae. Reggae is like an overarching thing that they call Jamaican music. Because like if you check the Reggae Grammys, you have different artists that aren't particularly reggae in the category. So it still applies to music from Jamaica. Dancehall is a subculture, subgenre within that was birthed. I say a lot like, you know, Jamaica is the mother, the father, and reggae and dancehall are the children within the culture. And remember, before we had reggae, we had ska, we had rock steady, we had blue beat. These are all genres that came out of Jamaica. And from them, like I said earlier, listening to what was going on in R&B and popular music in America. And this was that transition period again. So it was a cultural shift, it was an emotional shift, it was a pole shift in a way of things coming into modern times.
Thank you for that context. But it also sounds like you're saying that maybe dancehall isn't what it used to be, Latonya. I told her I was going to cause trouble, by the way, so she's ready for this.
Evolution. Things never gonna be the same.
Never.
We have cell phones now, so there's gonna be advancement. There's gonna be shifting. You know how people perceive stuff. People get more creative. People start getting influence from foreigners. So those are the things that affected change.
Yes.
But I want to bring a point up with the fact that we actually brand it as dancehall, but in the reggae world, so I'm going to use somebody as an example, Sister Nancy. Everybody
Great
knows Sister
example.
Nancy, right? She's known as the first lady for dancehall.
She is First Lady. Yep.
Right. But we both were awarded 1 year Queens of Reggae, and we had to do lots of interviews. So during the interview, she said that she does reggae. So I'm like, yeah, but you're the dancehall founder. She's like, no, I do reggae. And I'm like, yeah, but... So she holds it strong that she does reggae, and for her, dancehall is a space. And this is like recently.
Very important
She
point.
still is determined that she's a reggae artist, even though if you Google her, she's a dancehall artist. So for her, she still brands it as reggae. But in my defense, I'm like, yeah, but Bob Marley's song sounds totally different from Vybz Kartel.
Exactly.
And the tone and the pace is totally different, especially, and also the consciousness. So for me, reggae is more conscious, more, political, more talking about the society, but dancehall is more touching on, what should I say, tricky or things that are not, people wouldn't expect us to sing about. So it's like, we touch on the raw stuff. So raw sexually, also in terms of just politically, we will talk about a gun differently from a reggae person will talk about it. So we are more blatant in dancehall. So there's no way we could name it the same thing. It has to be labeled differently just to separate the two concepts, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely transitioned into something faster, something more serious, like more raw. And so it can't be the same.
Well, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about how you got into dancehall? Just give us a sense of your context and how you came to the form and, how you emerged as a dancehall queen yourself.
Okay, so I grew up in a dancehall home. My mom, she's a lover of dancehall, but she also owned a store that she sells dancehall fashion. So she sells from the shoes to the exotic outfits for the women. So the women, we don't wear much clothes to the parties. Short shorts, mesh stockings, a lot of boots. So very vibrant, very flamboyant. And so I grew up loving the fashion for one, and the music was always played in my home. We had a lot of records. We actually had the record player at home. That's how much she loved it, and she loved partying. So she was out every night partying. So I guess it's in the DNA, or it just was inevitable. And my dad was a sound system owner. Yes, to this day. And it's funny that if I'm coming to America, he lives in West Palm Beach, he wants me to bring CDs because there's no longer discs. So I'm like, nobody uses CDs anymore. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know what else to use. So I'm like, put it on a thumb drive. And he's like, what is that? He still is old school. But I try to have his other children help him with the thumb drive idea, but it's not working.
I had children for the same reason, because I wouldn't know anything.
So he's a sound system. He was also a bar owner, and he was like managing Tiger, who is a big dancehall artist as well. So I grew up in that space, and I didn't plan to make it a career. I actually went to school, did my schoolwork, I worked in 9 to 5, so I had an administrative job. But deep down in my heart, I was like just dancing in the canteen. I was teaching the staff members dance moves, you know, doing fitness classes with them. And I was touring with artists during my 9 to 5 job. So every weekend I was traveling with Mr. Lexus. That was from 1999. I was at every single stage show performing Sunfest, Sting, Jazz and Blues Festival, whatever it was, I was there performing. So it was always in my heart. And eventually I quit my job, working 9 to 5 in the Cayman Islands, doing offshore banking. And yeah, that was because I got a tour opportunity to tour all of America. I went to tour Japan. And I was just like, yeah, forget the work, forget the sitting at the desk, and went straight into just performing with artists. After that, some magic happened. My casual video on YouTube, someone wanted me to teach what I was doing in Russia. So went to Russia. That opened doors for Europe tours. Now I'm traveling by myself, getting my own bookings. I'm going to places like Israel, Indonesia. I've been to Senegal, South Africa, a lot of places that you wouldn't imagine people are attracted to dancehall. And yeah, that's how I got into dancehall. And I decided also that as a technical dancer, so I started off with ballet, modern, I know a lot of different African dances. I realized that it didn't make me special. And when I traveled casually to the States to visit family, everybody wanted to know what's the Jamaican dance. And I was like, wow, this thing looks like it's really special. So I decided to focus more on my culture. And, you know, I did a lot of research, studying, and I just made it my expertise. And I think that was the best decision ever, because if I did ballet and all of those stuff, I don't think I would travel as much. And I think I'm traveling because of the uniqueness that I have to offer and teaching what I grew up in and what's natural to me.
Fantastic, thank you. So Joelle, I want to come back to you and ask you how you got so attracted to dancehall culture that you wanted to make a film about it. How is it that you decided, like, this is something I really need to be thinking about for my film?
My first excitement around dancehall actually came as a high school student when I was learning to look at how Japanese woodblock prints reflect Japanese culture. And I started, as someone who's always been doing dancehall dance like through classes, not through the street culture, but just through taking classes, I started reflecting, as I was outside of Jamaica, I was studying in the Netherlands, I was reflecting about how the dance moves reflect Jamaican culture. And this led me to see as well how the moves have been showing up in various music videos, such as Ed Sheeran's Shape of You and Rihanna's pop music and all kinds of artists, Beyonce, etc., but not necessarily ever associated with Jamaica. And as I was thinking through how these moves reflect Jamaican culture, because they're so rooted in the Jamaican experience, but then they're showing up in these foreign popular media music videos without being associated with Jamaica, I really wanted to create something that actually establishes dancehall dance as Jamaican. And the point was to show through the people who are creators of dancehall dance that the dance moves are inspired by very specific local realities. The experience of joy, the experience of Jamaican joy, hardship, the experience of Jamaican food. In the documentary Out There Without Fair, there's dancers explaining their moves, breadfruit, which is a popular Jamaican food. Other moves such as Midalai, which refers to the tightness of the female genitalia that is very much celebrated in Jamaican culture. So ideas from Jamaican culture that have been translated into dance moves really inspired the documentary, but also wanted to establish that in Jamaican culture, one of the key one of the key aspects of Jamaican society that has really allowed us to have a name out there as Jamaica has put us on the map is it's often from working class culture. And this is very different from in the US, where the US branding in terms of whether it's Disney or Amazon or Twitter, a lot of this is coming out of the elite in the US, but in Jamaica, it's a lot of what we're known for is our working class culture, from our food, jerk chicken, which comes from our enslaved, our people who ran away, the enslaved people who ran away, the Maroons, or dancehall.
Are you suggesting that American culture does not
It's
derive
only-
from working class culture? Somebody put up 2 fingers for me. 2 fingers.
I'm suggesting that globally, like let's say in the most remote place, if you were to ask someone about Jamaica and America, the thing that someone would know about Jamaica would probably be reggae, and that's coming from the working class. And the thing that someone would know about America would maybe be Disney or something else.
Or Michael Jackson. If we were doing
So
entertainment.
we can have different opinions, right?
Okay.
But
Well, so
I'm saying
the question
my
of
view.
naming, where things come from, who they belong to, who they should be associated with, as something travels across the world and people are practicing these things that didn't originate, in places from which they didn't originate, so non-Jamaicans dancing dancehall, non-Jamaicans singing reggae music, right? How does that politics of naming work as the culture moves around the world? How do you maintain the claim of Jamaicanness when something has transcended Jamaica? And I guess this is another way of asking the question about what is the relationship between performance and ownership? And I mean cultural ownership, but also we can get into questions of property ownership as well. Because all the things that you're talking about, right, the relationship between the musician and the crowd and the mover, right, these are about performances that are live, that are improvised, that are, very much embedded in the kind of call and response nature of open communication. The naming of those things comes later. The property ownership comes after that. What's the relationship between performance and ownership in this kind of cultural practice?
I think that once something goes mainstream and global, it's not like we don't have ownership of it anymore, but it's like a gift to the world. I personally think so, and no one needs to agree with me, but I think our culture is a gift to the world, first of all. And take into consideration, imitation is a great form of flattery. It is the greatest form. And the thing is, like, I'll look at our Jamaican music culture, I'll compare it to something like Japanese anime culture, which is something that's now become worldwide. But it's Japanese, you know what I mean? It's inherently part of Japanese culture, but it's now gone worldwide, and many other people are taking that similar art style, art form, and creating other things. People are creating it that aren't Japanese. Does that not make it anime anymore? That's like a question we have to ask ourselves. So for Jamaican culture, like the ownership of it, the creation, the birthplace, the catalyst is still Jamaica. But just like how we go to other places in the world and we carry our food and we carry these things, culture comes with us. It's like, the bird dropping the seed while it's flying. So it's an interesting thing to say ownership. And ownership, like we deal with like street credibility, for want of a better word, to say, okay, this is a Jamaican thing. But remember, it's also grown and taken different forms. And sometimes let's say if that seed wasn't, in a shipping container that came to America that grew somewhere, maybe our culture would not have gotten so far. So that's something we have to take into consideration as well. But while still giving respect to the creators, the originators, the catalysts,
Right. So, Latonya, you've had the experience of people, like say a squirrel eating the seed and then thinking it's the bird.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, talk about your experience traveling across the world and seeing dancehall come back at you in ways that you don't recognize. How do you think about that?
Okay, so one big culture shock that I got, and I don't think I ever told Joelle this either, so this is going to be new to her. I went away and I heard that there's this dance style called dembow. Does anybody know of it? No?
I
You know about it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like, dembow, what is dembow? So they said they got the name from Shabarank's
Dembo rhythm.
song and the rhythm name.
Yep.
So the song is about, it says dembo, 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 na 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 na, dembo, na 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 na. But it's a language barrier because obviously they don't know what it means.
It became the catalyst for reggaeton.
Exactly. So this same dembo became a whole genre.
Yes.
But I was like, why? Why that name? Because in Jamaica, it's like the bow is going down and we
Yep.
say dembo, but he's saying it's something negative for you to bow, right? So I'm like, why would they use something negative to represent a whole genre? But they just love the repetitiveness of the dembo, dembo, and it was a hit song. So they're like, oh, we taking this. And I'm like, that's the wrong thing you took. But, I consider it... That's what I consider appropriation because you don't even know the meaning or the reason why we're telling people not to bow. And, it becomes a whole genre. So sometimes when they take stuff, you feel flattered. But for this one, I was like, you guys missed out. So I was not appreciative of that one because I said they didn't even research it. And I realized that a lot with a lot of the language barrier countries. So they take stuff like there's another thing that they would say like, just some random words that we look down on and it's a big brand for them. So that's a big experience for me. Also, in terms of using material that we have done, I remember some Russians, they didn't even replicate, they did the exact choreography and it was a big thing because I was like, they didn't credit us in the video. And what we found out when we literally went into the system to find out about copyright, they said that copyright in Jamaica, which is Jaipo, does not cover the world. No. So if somebody in Russia wants to copy my exact thing, too bad for me.
They're
because
not protecting us.
the copyright in Jamaica is for Jamaica.
Yep.
So if it makes no sense me even trying to copyright it. And then the next thing I was told that you can't copyright dance because it has so many different movements. So for example, signal the plane. And then if I choose to say, okay, let's do it this way instead, then it's a different dance. Or if I do it lower, then it's a different thing. So, but you're copying because you just went lower. So it's hard to codify and it's hard to copyright dance. So for us, it's a huge challenge. Yeah. Because we're lost. We don't know which direction to go, how to monetize. And when we even speak out against it, they're just like, oh, let's just credit them. So they take it and they're like, oh, we credited you. So I have a lot of videos tagged. They're using my moves and all they do is tag me. So now I can't complain because they credited me. Yes. But then monetary, there's no gain. So it's a lot of complications, especially in the dance world. We're the underdogs in entertainment. We get the less pay. We are least valued in the entertainment scene.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to add on to what Latonya was saying because as a music creator, producer, I now work with a lot of the Latin artists who have literally taken that same sound. And it was actually created by the people who first discovered me in music, which was Steely and Clevie. Right. And they're now suing the whole reggaeton industry for that same credit of their one beat. It's just like one repetitive, same tempo, same thing. But these guys in Latin America have totally expounded on it and used that same one beat to make a whole genre.
And they use the name reggae.
Yeah. And when I interact with them, I explain to them, like, you guys know where it comes from. In their defense, they're like, we love you guys so much. We just wanted a piece. We just wanted to participate. But it's now grown into one of the biggest genres of music right now.
Exactly.
And it's something that needs to be further clarified. So they're just really happy to meet me when they meet me, because they're like, you're an actual Jamaican producer. We can get a little, more of that understanding credibility for what they're creating. But at the same time, like, give credit where credit is due.
But not only that, who protects us?
Well, that's an important point as well.
Does the government not see reggae?
Yeah, the government's not doing enough to
Okay.
protect our copyright.
We have a comment from the audience there.
Okay,
and
no
everyone-
problem.
I have a comment. I have a very sincere question.
Okay.
And I've been thinking, thank you. I've been thinking about it since the introduction first started. But I once learned that dance is telling a story through the body. And you brought into the conversation also about how dancehall is a spiritual experience.
Yes.
So can you tell me how the narrative and the spiritual experience come together in dancehall? And I don't know if it's exclusively you, because of course Joelle is working with narrative structures, and even as a selector, it's a type of narrative call and response conversation.
Okay. All right. So, spiritually, okay. So let me give you an example. There's a crew called Riffical Team, and their name is Riffical Spiritual. So people were like, why are they calling themselves spiritual and they're in the party dancing to Boogie Yaga music? All these songs are talking about sex and guns and scamming and all this stuff. How are they spiritual? But the name is so powerful because, say for example, in church, like Jamaican churches, they are very energetic, and then at one point they get into spirits and they start to, be more like aggressive or start to whatever. I think the dancers have that same experience. So the music puts us in a trance. So I don't even think it's alcohol, because I'm drunk when I don't even drink. I drink water and I'm high because of the music. If I'm in pain, once the music hits, feel no pain. So for me, it's some spiritual thing. And it's hard to explain, it's hard to put your hand on it, but I don't know if the ancestors are coming through us or what, but when we hear the beat, and I think it also has to do with the speaker boxes that you mentioned, how they're built, and the loudness of it. Because if it's playing soft, you're like, oh, okay, but when the beat hits you, you feel that energy, you get so much emotions. And even connecting the lyrics, if it's talking about happiness, you just really feel happy, even if you have no food to eat when you go back home. You're just in a different spiritual mode, and it makes you a different person in a positive way most times. Even if it's negative, it's more of releasing the negative energy versus it's not like we're going to be fighting in the party. But we do bad man moves to bring out that anger. And I definitely don't think it's just physical. There's definitely a spiritual realm with the beat, with the music, with the lyrics, with body connection. Because we're there with each other. We feed off each other's energy. There's some electric flow going on. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered you. I did?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have some
Mandy? Oh, go ahead.
additional thoughts to add
Yeah.
to this the spirituality of dance, right? In dancehall, there's a lot of repetition, and we say pull up, but what's really what's happening is you're entering together with all the people there a certain headspace. If you're listening to a song or a certain section of a song and you're singing it together and you're doing the same move over and over, something is happening. You're losing sense of self, of ego, right? And in addition to that, there's a dancer that I once interviewed he's traveled a lot, teaching a lot of different people all over the world dancehall, but he actually says they can't ever get it. They can't ever get the moves because the dance is a spiritual experience. And he's been practicing the moves for years to be able to move his pelvis with the fluidity that he does. And they can only superficially mimic this dance move, but it's something that he says has been instilled in his body over years. So dance is as much a spiritual experience, but also something that is ingrained into the body over time.
Manny, you want to come forward on that?
Thank you so much. I'm wondering, through my own experiences of dance, someone told me when I was quite young to go back and learn about the Sufis, which connected to my own ancestors. And I'm just thinking if any of you have like sought out expressions in certain cultures where people are trying to identify, the sacred and the spiritual and the divine in dance and music. And then just thinking of repetition that you were talking about, the Sufis would swirl. They would just like, so I don't know. I'm trying to tease out connections and wondering, what y'all think.
Just
I would add also I also partly answer that question. Like we call dancehall, like when we're saying we're going, first of all, dancehall is not only a music, but it's a place. These were halls of dance. First thing I wanted to make sure everyone remembers, but sometimes we say, I'm going to church. I say, what you doing later? I'm going to church. So it is like a church for us. It's a gathering place. And, just like how someone would come from abroad and you say, hey, you can come to my church. It's that same spiritual experience of togetherness, communality, and like wherever you're from, you're welcome at the same time. So it's all that melding of minds, melding of energies and places and those same connections, because it's built into us. Movement is part of us. Sound frequency has an effect on your body, and to touch on a technical aspect as well, the bass line, that's something very big that Jamaica is given to the world. I want to say that, like, we really invented that deep bass line, that thumping bass. The 808 was created through Jamaican music that you hear in all the popular music now. So that resonant frequency it also, tempo controls your heartbeat, and it has a physical effect on you, a spiritual and emotional aspect. Sometimes I'll be driving and hear a certain song, you want to drive faster,
Yes,
it has
definitely.
that effect on you. So, this is all part of the captivation. So it is a church, it is a spiritual experience at the end of the day. It's just that it has different connotations for different people. These are all parts of human connectivism and coping mechanisms too. Like Latonya said, sometimes you don't know, you have dinner when you're going back home, but you leave the dance happy. You know what I mean? So it fills your soul. It's like food at the same time,
That is it.
Please.
I wanted to go back to something Joelle said about the working class origins of both reggae and dancehall. And I was struck by something you said, Latonya, about the government not helping you protect the value of this form, of this art form. And you also mentioned certain forms of stigma, right, that are attached to these practices. So when you say this is Jamaican, it seems like it is both recognized and celebrated as Jamaican in certain spaces, and it's not denied its kind of representative power in other spaces. And this is not just outside of Jamaica, it's also within Jamaica, right?
Yes.
So I wonder if you can say something about that, about class, right? And the sort of connection between class, reggae, dancehall, and how that shapes the way you're positioned within Jamaican society. And is there a way in which, because of the kind of globalization of dancehall and reggae, does the kind of global recognition of these forms then kind of travel back to Jamaica and help you sort of enhance your own value
Definitely.
as practitioners within Jamaican society?
Definitely. So in Jamaica, a lot of people don't understand, but we don't really have racism because we have Chinese, we have white people, we have all out of many one people. That's our motto in Jamaica. So the division is usually class. We call it classism. So classism, upper class, lower class, middle. Joelle calls it working class, but for me, most of the talent comes from the ghetto, which is lower.
Straight up.
Not even working.
Class.
Yeah.
Working
But
class,
for the
yeah.
whole thing, Joelle just want to keep it middle, you know? So she's like, working. But I'm like, really?
I get a man thing.
I think it's actually very lower.
The lowest of the low. They look at us at
the
the
ghetto.
lowest of the low.
Can I ask you to just temper that or adjust that one? Because I just
Sure.
noticed the first time I went to Jamaica
Yes.
that as you go from, say, Kingston up the hills toward Ligony, right? The kind of average skin tone of the population tends to get lighter and lighter. And it seems that in some way, like race or color at least, is being mapped onto class on the Jamaican landscape.
Definitely.
Am I wrong to see that?
A
Or?
little bit
A
wrong
little,
because
yeah.
there are some Chinese and white people that lives in the ghetto downtown.
for sure.
What they call up and down.
Yeah.
It's not a location.
And I'm not talking about segregation. I'm talking about a continuum where it seems that there are more light-skinned people living in the wealthier properties,
Not really.
and there are more dark-skinned people living in the poorer
Not
properties.
really,
Is that
because
right?
I
even in
wouldn't
the
say so.
rural areas, there are a lot of Indians, a lot of white people, white, very high color, especially
color,
Saint
yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So I think it's a mixture all
Okay,
around, and you can be black and wealthy.
Oh, for
You
sure.
can be an uptown black person, and you can be a poor white person in Jamaica. So it's really.
And so
not-
you're saying, and the likelihoods are equally distributed?
In
You're
my
as
opinion,
likely
what do you
to be
think?
a wealthy person or a poor person if you're white, and you're as likely to
mean,
be a poor
if you
a
go
wealthy
back
person if
to
you're black?
slavery days,
Yeah,
obviously
it
the
comes from
slave
colonialism.
masters are
Yes.
going to be the whites, but then eventually, because of the mixed cultures and some black people got the eliteness as well. So we're not really stressed about the color per se. So if you're lucky enough to be black and uptown or in the high society, then you'll be considered. So we're not going to be like, oh, because we do have discrimination based on color, because that's why we have bleaching problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of black
That's
persons
self-hate.
want to be brown, So that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about the classism is that the lower class is the one creating. So the upper class don't want to be associated. So that's why the uptown people are kind of like, oh, dancehall, they love it. But because it's ghetto, they have to be like,
It's almost like a
shunning
guilty
from it.
pleasure. It's like
Yeah,
a
it's a
guilty
guilty
pleasure
pleasure.
for them.
Right.
Because they don't want to mix with like a lot of the people down there, but they're in their house enjoying it. And
Yes.
more recently, a lot of those kids are starting going out and partying in the where they would consider to be the ghetto.
And the ghetto, the uptown, the funny thing is the location. So in every uptown, there's a ghetto.
Exactly.
So even if you live in the hills, in a big glass house, there's some ghetto around the road.
Right next to you.
If you live in Cherry Garden, there's cassava peas.
Facts.
You understand? There's Grand Spain in, so there's a ghetto in between. So for me, it's not about uptown, downtown, or the location. It's more the mentality and more your economic situation. So if you're poor, it's like you're considered lower class. Working class, obviously, people that have jobs. It could be in a store, it could be wherever. But we definitely have a classism problem in Jamaica, and I think most of the culture and the talent is coming from the lower class. And that's their way of becoming higher class. So a lot of the ghetto artists are now living
That
in
life.
Norbrook, in Uptown, right beside the politicians, and it's a little controversy, but because of their talent, they become on a higher level. Yeah.
Please, and then Mandy again. Yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to say that how much I appreciate to be here, to feel the Caribbean vibe. Being myself from Martinique, with the weather that we have outside, it's nice to have the company. So, as I was listening to you also, I know it's a kind of a different context, but I couldn't help but thinking about the miniseries by Steve McQueen, and that's very specific episode he has on...
Lovers Rock?
Sorry?
The Lovers Rock?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I felt that was really so much giving the sense of what you guys were saying about, the expression of the body, because in that piece, they're barely speaking. It's really, the bodies and the music. So I guess that was a good illustration of what you're talking about.
It's a brilliant film.
Yes, really. But then the second point, to go back to what you were just saying now about class and color, maybe we can see the color and the colorism much more through the access to the international market, and who's going to get access to that, and who has access maybe to who's going to be picked by certain companies. So I wanted to hear you talk maybe a little bit more about the type of tension that creates inside of Jamaica, the influence of the music, the international music industry, and how they would pick some artists over others, and yes, the dynamic that this creates inside on the local market in Jamaica.
Well, that's an interesting concept because I have been in a very interesting place. You know, I'm blessed to be who I am, but there's also a lot of things that come with that because I'm from the grassroots, but because of my skin color, they would want to say you're uptown. So that's part of it, but that doesn't always mean you're going to get picked. I would say also for things that do cross over, it's a lot of time a language barrier. I will say that because a lot of the artists who do get pushed, like let's say Sean Paul, for example, he's a good example. He does dancehall music, but he speaks in a different way than the more, as you'd say, you know, ghetto artist in that sense. And he's actually from uptown. He's a upper class person and from an upper class family. So that gives him advantages. And then, you know, that's a dynamic like what Latonya was saying with the classism. Whereas, you know, in some ways he's accepted, but if you know his journey when he was trying to get into the dance hall, no one would ever pass the mic to him. They're like, hey, uptown boy, get out of here. And he would be trying to talk on the sound system.
But to this day, he's still not really accepted in Jamaica.
Exactly. To this day, he's still not. He's uptown. And for that reason, the dance hall hasn't fully accepted him because it is, as we say, it's a ghetto man thing, you know, which is like, you know, it's ghetto fabulous in that sense. And people want to use it as a way to move forward and get out of the ghetto. Because we don't call it just the ghetto, we call it the get out. So we're trying to use this art form, this thing to get us out of there. So obviously for someone like him, he's going to get picked all the time. But, you know, there are things. Remember, Beanie Man was before him, black guy from the ghetto. Shaba, Grammy winners. Sean Paul, you know, he's still there, but he has international success, but he doesn't have that acceptance. So that is part of that same cultural classist dynamic that, you know, she was talking about as well. But also, remember, music is a business as well. And what makes dollars make sense, you know, and I have to always remember as a creator, that's part of it, but you can't sacrifice to make that. So it's always a push and pull. And those things do create tensions within the music industry. Some people, like she said, some people resent Sean Paul, even though he's one of our best cultural exports and has done so much for the culture. So, you know, I have to always balance my love and understanding, and it's always 50-50. You have to see things from other people's perspective too. So, you know.
And it works in the dance space too. So
yeah.
I could say I am in Sean Paul's position because I have an education. I'm considered uptown, which I'm totally not.
Same.
A lot of people don't accept me in Jamaica. I've had colleagues try to tarnish and say, oh, she's not real dancehall. And their excuse is, oh, she's from uptown. Yep, and I have to be convincing these people that, no, I'm not uptown. My mother is from the country. She came to Kingston as a single mom, got pregnant when she was 15, kicked out, went through hardship. I've never been in Beverly Hills. I've never had a lavish lifestyle. But because she made sure I got a good education and I present myself in a certain way, they discriminate me in my own country. And they want to be like, oh, she didn't go through enough hardship. And even as a dancer who is successful because of a good mom, I still have to try to convince my own people. So they like you when you are struggling.
Yep.
If you're getting it too easy in their eyes or whatever.
Yep.
So the ones who accept me mostly are the foreigners because I am able to communicate with them because I speak properly, because I want them to understand, which I can still speak patois, but because of how I present myself, you're not accepted in your own space. So Sean Paul, for me, is brilliant. He's the one that put dancehall on the map in a lot of places. And to this day, Jamaicans is like, no, Cartel is the king. Why? Because they can relate to Cartel and he is more struggling. So they like you because of your hardship or your struggles. And I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I agree totally.
And
with her.
even complexion doesn't get you everywhere, because that in that case, it didn't get me anywhere being a little lighter. And even the fact that people were even saying that, oh, she's not even born in Jamaica, because I was working in Cayman for like 2 months and they're like, oh, she's not even Jamaican, she's fake. And I'm like, my own Jamaicans did that.
It's true.
And it's really sad. But in terms of color as well, I've been not chosen for music videos because I wasn't dark enough. There was this one girl, her name is Mystic, and I have to big her up, love Mystic.
Big up Mystic.
But she had that look that they liked. She was dark, she just looked, you know, like a rustic country girl, but she's so beautiful. And for me, I was looking like probably the foreigner, so they were like, nah. And even in the fashion world, they want the dark skin. So sometimes it gets you thus far, and sometimes it just don't work for you.
Just to put another perspective on the table, there are people in Jamaica big in the music industry, such as Herbie Miller, who was Peter Tosh's former manager, Maxine Stowe, who managed the artist Sugar Minot, and Supercat, that think that it's skin color that determines how far Jamaican music artists go in the international market. So, for example, Maxine Stowe has said that, you know, she thinks it's Bob Marley's skin color that made him go so far, that he was more palatable to an international audience in a time when skin race was, you know, much more relevant, or, you know, a source of tension than it is now. So there are many different perspectives in Jamaica about, you know, what's holding us back. And definitely there are people who think, you know, it's skin color and race is a factor, and that some of our darker skinned artists who are very talented, Peter Tosh, Lee Scratch Perry, Bunny Wailer, just haven't made it as far, not because of their talent, but because of their image and how they land in an international market.
Spice complaints.
Thank you.
Yeah, Spice is big, yeah.
I have another question. So, thank you for talking about I appreciate this conversation about the authenticity of the culture being contested within Jamaica. What happens, what is lost in translation when the music and the dance goes abroad? Like you were talking about traveling to Japan, like one of your very first tours. Can you explain, like technically or in terms of improvisation, kind of what happens when other people?
All right, so I'm glad you mentioned Japan, which is one of my favorite countries, by the way. The thing with Japan, a lot doesn't get lost because they're very good at replicating. So I was shocked when I went to Japan, the dancehall scene, the first time I went with Mr. Vegas, the audience had some little tiny guns to represent the bow, bow, bow that we do with our fingers. So I was like, why do they have guns? They're like, because it's bow, bow, you know, yeah. They literally made guns for that purpose. And I was like, okay. No, when I went there, there was a Japanese yellow man, a Japanese beanie man, a Japanese bogle, a Japanese kiva. There was a whole bogle, what you call when they, like a tribute, they have a special part, reunion, no, I don't remember the name, but they have something specifically for bogle every year when he's that memorial. They have a bogle memorial. We didn't even have one in Jamaica, but they celebrate everything that we didn't. They were dressed fully dancehall. And mind you, when I went, Jamaicans were like dressing foreign, Americanized. They didn't even represent dancehall crazy dressing anymore. The Japanese, they were making original dancehall costumes, sequins, crazy outfits. Their hairstyles, red, green, purple, and I was amazed. So I wouldn't even use Japan because they had a Jamaican restaurant.
Yeah.
They had the sound system culture, which is amazing because they have a lot of sounds, and that culture actually feeds a lot of Jamaicans because the sound systems want dub plates for clashes that happen in Japan, and it's huge. It's a huge market, and I'm really flattered because I was like, you guys nailed it. However, the flip side, when I go to Europe, as a dancer, they don't know about sound system culture. There is no dancehall parties. There's no Jamaican food. The fashion, they dress normal. They wearing baggy clothes. We're like, girls, that's too much clothes. Yeah, so it doesn't represent the culture at all. They just want to learn to dance.
Yeah.
And it's just boring. So it doesn't translate in some places because everybody just want what they want. So if you want the music, you just like, oh, music. Then you forget the dance, you forget the fashion. If it's dance, oh, let's just take the dance. We don't want this. But what they need to understand, it's a full package. You can't be doing dancehall in baggy hip-hop sweatpants. It's not dancehall. That's hip dancehall or something else. But to be dancehall, you have to have the image. You have to have the swag. You have to have the language. You need to learn patois. That's why I even started a patois class, because I wanted them to understand the lyrics. It's not just about the beat. It's about what the song is saying. I've been to dance competitions and the song is about shoot, shot, boy, and the girls are whining. I'm like, that's so wrong. And as a judge, I'm like, okay, this person won. They're looking at me like she's crazy. I'm like, no, it's my culture. I know what I'm judging. They're not doing the correct thing, but they don't speak the language. So I have to let them understand it's a full package. Japanese, they understand. They speak patois. They don't even speak English. I swear.
Oh, yeah, no, they can speak patois and
They
not
speak
speak
patois
English.
and can't speak English.
Yes, facts.
They take it on full speed.
Please. Is there a microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I have a question about there's imitation, there's improvisation,
Yes.
right? And you said that dance hall is very difficult to codify,
Yes.
right? But you're also talking about sort of departures from authenticity, from like what should be proper dance hall, right? So how do you see the relationship between perfect imitation, right, which you're crediting the Japanese with,
Yes.
right? It's perfect imitation. They want to get they have a sort of holistic approach to it, right? They want to reproduce it as a whole.
Right.
But then where's the space for improvisation? And I mean, dancehall is not a static form, right? It keeps changing, it keeps shifting. So what is the relationship between this kind of insistence on a kind of ground, a sort of original truth or a sort of original form and its dynamism?
Wow. All right, so there's a controversy now about people creating moves that are not from Jamaica. So, funny enough, the Japanese, they even start making up moves. And it got out of hand. So at first we were like, yeah, people can create moves. Now I'm like, no one is allowed to. So people are like, what? You guys are confused. But the thing is, just imagine dancehall moves all over the world. Like French people have a set of dancehall moves, Japanese have a set, and they're calling it dancehall moves, and people are learning it. And we're like, you know what? We change our mind. If you're not from Jamaica, you can't create moves. So even though they look good doing it, and to me, even though they nail it, there's still something missing.
Some of that soul?
Yeah, the soul not there. something still look off. And we want to protect it, so we have to start getting strict. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
But I wonder if you think there's more space for improvisation without it no longer being dance hall, right? if there's more of a space for that in Jamaica, is there something about the context that's important, right? That you can improvise in Jamaica and still have it count as dance hall? And if that's the case, what is it about the context that's important?
Yes,
Does that make sense?
I understand. It's a socio-economic concept, and being in the space and understanding the culture versus borrowing the culture. That's what I think should be the stamp. And the stamp should be, you have to be there, you have to live it, you have to experience the lifestyle, you have to speak the language, you have to experience the hardship or the pain or the happiness or whatever. You need the sunshine. You know, you need to be drinking our drinks. The Magnum. The white rum.
Even the water though.
Even the water.
Yeah.
So you don't just make up a dance, for example, and then, it's dancehall because it's to dancehall music. That was the thing. And I remember also in France, when we started touring, there was a group of guys who wanted to define it for us. And their definition of dancehall is feeling. So the argument was, hip hop is ta, 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 snap, snap, quick, and dancehall is feeling. So they started to call themselves Feeling Unity, and that's the brand. So I'm like, hold a minute, we didn't even define it ourselves. So who gives you guys permission to define it? And then I was like, but I'm a dancer. I did ballet and I had to have feeling. And I was like, I did African dance and I did it with feeling. So we can't define dancehall by feeling. So what do we use? So I came up with a concept. We defined it by its origin. So if you're not from Jamaica, it's not dancehall. So that was my conclusion.
So I want to piggyback on that and bring Makonnen back into the conversation and kind of bring it full circle to sound system again,
Yes.
right? Because a lot of those sound systems in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s were playing American R&B,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And so at some point
Yes.
there were some various appropriations,
Yes.
innovations, right? Which, made it into reggae.
Yes.
But this was already a borrowing. This was already a kind of learning and active and dynamic, intermixing.
Yes.
But then there's what I always call the Elvis problem, right? Which is that at some point someone renames something and they decide that there's a new originator, and that it's no longer R&B, but it's now reggae, or that it's no longer black rhythm and blues, now it's rock and roll. And then somehow Elvis becomes the king of rock and roll.
Yes.
And that's where these questions of ownership come in, and they become really important. Because then, of course, the people who already own property and are expected to own property and are expected to be paid for whatever they do, then get paid to do something that other people have been doing for a very long time.
Right.
Can you talk about how that works in the music industry and how your understanding of it from music might apply to our understanding in dance
it's a bit
or anything else?
It's a bit nuanced in a way with creating music versus creating dances. Because in music, we have things like songwriter credits and things like that, where you can actually say, this person did that. I wrote the song, I composed the music, he did that, he was a co-writer. Those things have been put into place to protect musical creations. That hasn't been done for dance and movement. I think that's also a problem that we have where, I totally agree with everything Latonya says, but where was the things that were put in place to protect the dancers and the creators like that? So that's a big thing. Secondarily, I'll touch on an interesting situation. I don't know if everyone here has heard of Major Lazer before. Okay, so Major Lazer, Diplo is a good friend of mine. He came to Jamaica a while back. He said, hey, I'm starting a sound system. I said, brother, you're a white boy. You want to start a sound system? What do you mean? But he's like, listen, this is what I want to do. I'm a DJ, and I want to bring this to America. Said to him, I said, bro, well, if you're going to do that, you've been coming to visit us for a while. You have to really get deeper. You have to get in there if you want to do it. And there's also a part of things being lost in translation is because there was no translator. So if we don't step up and not just embrace, but show these people that, hey, you're not going to ever feel the same things we felt or the same struggles we felt, but you care about us, you care about our culture, you can relate to it. And, he created this major laser sound. And it started off as a sound system. The first album was dub plates, literally, that turned into songs. And even to the point of where a Vybz Kartel song that was created, the beat, everything, for Vybz Kartel was used in a Beyonce song, Who Run the World Girls. But that was originally a Vybz Kartel song, which Kartel gets songwriter credit for to this day on a Beyonce song. So saying that to say this, that there's things that protect songwriters, musicians, people like that, but not our dancers, our creators, or even someone who created the sound system itself. Like King Tubby's, those guys, Jack Ruby, they've been credited with creating it. But that's just more of like a street cred or like the originator. So a lot of these things are the result of maybe sometimes us not participating in a certain way with our visitors. Because like what Latonya does, you say, you come to Jamaica, you sit with us, you eat with us, you vibe with us, and we'll give you a piece of it. But you replicating it, it's a gray area. It's a very strange thing because we want you to enjoy our culture. We want you to do it. But then there are people who start really making money off of it, and because they come from different countries, they're able to easier capitalize, monetize it way easier because, like, say someone in America like Diplo, he has the ability to capitalize off of it versus someone from Jamaica not being able to do that. So these are things that I think we have to, work through, find a different way of dealing with for our culture to not only grow like that seed that's, dropping from the bird, but also to represent where it came from and show that love and give back to those who really created it. You know what I mean? So it's a very delicate, this is like such a nuanced conversation, guys, because there's so many different sides to it. There's so many different perspectives. Big up my friend Nikki. Well, I'll go on. But like, there's so much things to it that have such a dynamism that makes cultural appropriation. There's always like a thin line between appropriation, love, and imitation versus disrespect. Because we had to check Diplo one time. Because we're like, bro, you have people thinking that we're just crazy Jamaican people who jump off sound boxes and dagger the girls. And that is part of our culture, but don't make us look like a laughing stock at the same time. You know what I mean? And another counterpoint to that is like, I don't know, Latonya, you were there for the MIA video shoot?
Yes.
You were in that video for us. Exactly. So MIA comes to Jamaica and she's like, listen, I'm not going to do this unless we do it the right way. It has to have the original people. It has to, I'm just a musician. Like, that's what she said. So she allowed the people to curate an experience for her song Boys there. And yeah, exactly. And it was a vibe because that was more real. And she showed that reverence to the culture versus somebody who just take it, transplant it, and gone with it.
So she had that call and response.
She had that call and response, but that's also because she comes from a certain place as well. She's Tamil. She's had that struggle in a certain sense, so maybe she can relate, or it might hurt her the same way if her culture is appropriated, so she would show the same respect to us, whereas maybe an American might not know respect to the Americans, but it's a societal thing.
You wanted to jump in real quick, but then I got to close this out, right?
I wanted to, because you guys are talking about like representation. You say MIA. What was the situation with Justin Bieber's video? Because I know that there was a lot of controversy on a music level and on a dancer level. People misrepresenting like dancehall culture, so that would just be like, I just want to hear my take, like the take on that.
That actually ties into that same situation because my album Rockers Revolution, which you'll hear later, he tweeted it because Diplo was there interacting with us at the time about the project, and they were actually featuring Jamaican artists on their Major Lazer mixtapes. Jesse Royal, myself, Sons of Dub. They did Chronics as well. They helped actually bust some Jamaican artists to the mainstream. But while Justin was in the studio, that was actually the same day, like, Diplo video called me. He's like, hey, we're in the studio with Justin. He likes your music, man. It's cool. And that was when they were making that same song. And I realized that he was, in a way, rationalizing or making it acceptable by connecting with a Jamaican and saying, hey, what do you think of this? You think Justin's doing a good job or whatever? It's like, well, he's a little Canadian kid, you know? It's weird. Because also, don't forget though, Canadian people grow up with dancehall culture just like how
a lot of Jamaicans
the
in
UK
Toronto
people do. Because Toronto is little Jamaica. So we have maybe a less of a stigma attached to someone doing that versus, you know, someone. It's how you handle the culture. It's how you show that respect. That's all I can say.
My issue is also when we do accept them to come and sit with us and we share with them, I think a lot of them take advantage of that.
Thank you.
And not only is it appropriation with different races, so a lot of time people want to blame, oh, it's the white person taking it and that's all they do. But I'm thinking it's not correct, because a lot of time even our own black people take it, and because they're familiar with the culture, or they look the part, they give the impression that they're authentic. So we face that a lot, especially in Europe, where there's like dark people from different countries, Haiti, other places, that pretend to be Jamaican, wearing Jamaican colors, and they're not wearing their Haitian color, for example. And, you know, controlling the game because they're already black. But my thing is, sometimes we sit with them and then they appropriate, or they go away, take it, and they're like, oh, but we were drinking with you, so why are you complaining? We shared this, or we bought you this, or, okay, that doesn't mean you own us, or you have all right to take what is not yours.
So
and I mean, it's flattering when they come and grab the culture, but when they exploit it is what we really don't like. And for example, the Japanese, there's a sound system that is the biggest sound system. Not the
Worldwide.
biggest. I don't even want to say, I don't know.
Mighty Crown are the biggest
Yeah,
sound
they're
system. No doubt.
huge.
And they've won the Sound Clash, so
And
they are.
yeah, the thing is, I think they're even managed by a Jamaican.
They are.
So we can't really complain because, oh, but it's a Jamaican that's behind the career. And even in the dance world, for example, Japanese came to Jamaica 50, and they won our World Reggae Dance Competition.
Yes.
And it was a whole stage full of Jamaicans, one Japanese crew, and they won. And they came back the next year and won again. But the thing with that, who even made them enter? Why were they even entered?
How were they eligible?
How are they even? But my argument, because I was at the competition, I wasn't a judge, thank God, then I would be blamed. But what I admire about them is that they come as an outside person looking in. So just imagine this, 10 different people doing something, same with the music, and I'm just saying overall, it works with the music too. They're seeing us and they're grabbing everything. But in Jamaica, we're just holding on to our style. So that's the advantage they have. So they're able to study the full package. So a European girl would know everybody's dance move, but a Jamaican girl only know her dance move.
Yeah, good point.
So they're seeing the bigger picture, they're looking in, they're grabbing everything, they're studying what we are not studying. They're making a bigger use of it than we are. For example, I've been passing Bob Marley Museum all my life, and I only went when I was 35. That's really bad. Like, I pass it every day, and I didn't see the value of going. And when I went there, I was in tears because it was so interesting. And I'm like, all my life I didn't think of going there. I feel so bad. And it was a white man that came from Singapore or somewhere that came, and he was like, can you come with me? I'm like, why? And he's like, I just need company. And I went, and I was like, wow, we don't value our own thing. And it's just like going to France, and I'm like, take me to Eiffel Tower. They're like, why? I'm like, because that's what we know France for. So it's appreciated, and then they capitalize on it because we are not doing it. So we are kind of the ones to be blamed as well.
Thank you.
We are going to continue this conversation at a listening party that begins in this room at 6 o'clock for Makonnen Space Age Rasta Rockers Revolution album. We're going to continue to talk. He's going to talk us through that record. We've got to leave the room for 20 minutes or so they can set up for the listening party. Please come back in the room at 6 p.m. There will be food. There will be drink. I want to thank our panelists, and I want to thank all of you for such a great discussion this afternoon.